at 10, Springlich. Springlich was a character in the Dormitibus beta. Not much was ever planned for him, and he was one of the two characters modeled by user Golden Nexus, both of which didn't make it into the cut of the final game. Springlich's body is actually turned the opposite direction to its head. This would have constantly made him walk backwards, which was going to be a part of its minigame. That way it would make it possible for him to stumble and fall, causing him to become stunned. And they also appear to be a springlock victim, as they have what appears to be blood vessels or muscles in their suit. They have a decaying head in their mask, and they only have one eye. Great. They have long strips of withering on their mask, and their lower jaw is heavily worn down. Different sized holes cover the rest of their body, especially their upper torso and arm segments. How wonderful. And at 9, Dawnbreaker. Aside from being the reward for a Daedric side quest, Dawnbreaker was expected to be an antagonist in the now cancelled Dormitibus Remastered game. Dawnbreaker appears to be a heavily damaged purple mangled animatronic, the design of which was based on Shadow Freddy from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and presumably on the purple animatronic Hoax character. By his design, he is very similar to the Havoc animatronics. His torso is ripped and torn up, large tears are exposing the endoskeleton underneath, several limbs with hooks instead of feet are sticking out of his torso and his head, making Dawnbreaker similar to a spider. And any animatronic that looks like a spider needs to be put down and sent back to the depths of hell from which it came. And at 8, Molten Evil. Molten Evil is basically the Shadow Bonnie of Dormitibus. It was a Springlock victim and is heavily implied to be related to RWQFSFASXC. Molten Evil is a pure black animatronic rabbit that has melted. They look similar to Toy Bonnie, and is most likely this version's Shadow Bonnie. Molten Evil looks close to what Toy Bonnie looks like, but with some key differences. He is entirely black and appears to have a grimy looking texture to him. His eye sockets are filled with a white color, and a white substance, most likely plasma, is coming out of his eye sockets and running down his face all the way to his jaw. All of his teeth are glowing a bright white as well, and so is his bow tie. His bow tie, however, has melted severely, making it lose its original shape. Gotta love that, huh? Just pure wholesome. And at 7, Shadow Candy. Shadow Candy is the final form of another animatronic from Five Nights at Candy's 3, when their power level grows over 9,000. However, in the first and second game, his appearance is identical to Candy, with the only difference being that he has to be recolored to be a very dark shade of purple, almost black, and has eyes which resemble the Phantom animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. You know what Shadow animatronics are. He also has glowing teeth, like the Shadow animatronics from FNAF 2. Shadow Candy also sports 5 fingers on each hand, indicating that perhaps this was once a human in an animatronic suit, like how the original theories about the FNAF Shadow animatronics consisted of them being potential Springlock victims. But I don't know how this would tie into the lore of the games, because they're supposed to be another animatronic from FNAF 3, which takes place in the 60s, so I don't know. And at 6, the BOA. The BOA, otherwise known as the Box of Abominations, is an animatronic hybrid from the game that makes us all beg for death. It's also what my parents call me. The main head for the boa belongs to Toy Freddy. He has no ears connected to his head, and his top hat has a few holes in it, resulting in wires poking out. Toy Freddy also has a small hole right above his eye sockets, and a slightly bigger hole on the right side of his head. He's missing his right eye, and his right eye socket has melted slightly. Gotta love that. His remaining eye is pure white, along with his iris. He has no eyelids, and neither do any of the other heads. Both his upper and lower jaw have melted, along with his cheeks. This caused his endoskeleton jaw to be revealed more, even when his jaw is closed. Plus, there's still like 4 other heads, or 5. Like, what the hell? Take it away.
How about doing a number 5, Reaper Puppet? Ah yes, my arch nemesis. The Reaper Puppet. If you didn't know, the Reaper Puppet was the first fan animatronic ever featured on this channel, in the top 10 scary FNAF animatronics list around a year ago. The first FNAF video by me on this channel was on January 29th, 2020. Can you believe that? It's only been like a year and a half, and we already have over 200 FNAF videos. And the video I'm talking about came out a month later, on February 24th, 2020. So I have a long history with this character. The Reaper Puppet, along with Shadow Bonnie and the brother from Final Nights 1, are the only animatronics in the entire series to start off a night outside. Reaper Puppet appears to be the counterpart to the original series puppet, though it is only the Reaper Puppet's head that is similar to the core series puppet. The rest of his body is a dark shade of black. It has long stretching arms that are kind of like goo and has sharp fingers. He's like the Grim Reaper. The Reaper puppet also has multiple tentacle-like legs, which is pretty unsettling to say the least. It can also be easily mistaken for a tree, and its legs look like roots and the shoulders look like branches. This thing is so creepy that I included it on a list that shouldn't have had any fan animatronics in it because I was so creeped out and I felt compelled to. Like how kids in Fazbear Frights are drawn to the restaurants. But like, you should see this thing try to climb over a balcony. It's horrifying.
And for Golden Call. Golden Call is more or less like Springtrap design-wise. He's a spring-locked suit with a corpse inside of him, and he has become green to his color rotting away. Half of Golden Call's left ear is bent, causing it to stick out in an angle. His other ear is intact, other than some small withering on its sides. His black top hat also seems to have some withering on it, mainly towards the base and the sides. He has one small hole right above his eye sockets from withering, and the hole appears to be connected to the right eye socket, making it slightly bigger than normal. On the left side of his head there is a large hole. He has a bit more withering on the right side of his head too. Another batch of a red substance is sticking to this section of his head, which is most likely blood or something similar because, you know, it's a rotting body. Golden Call has a set of endoskeleton eyes in its head that also have red pupils, and the eyes of the corpse are hanging out of his eye socket and they appear to be blue. He has some withering on his snout and his lower jaw, slightly damaged with the edges, and inside there are two large balls, which could be organs or something else, but it's most likely other organs, not what you're thinking, stop it. His entire torso is heavily worn down and his pelvis has a single hole in the front that reveals what could be some blood vessels or muscles. Yeah, that's not where the balls are though, don't worry. That's a different organ. That's the organ you were thinking of when I said balls. No, I've said balls too much. And at 3, Blank. The Blank animatronic from FNAF and FNAF Remastered is actually very unique in concept, no doubt being inspired by Mangle, however. He is a drawing attraction that is meant for children to write and draw whatever they want all over his body. Kinda like the Blank custom Funko Pops. Over time, the animatronic was obviously withered down, and the withered version from the second game is what we'll be focusing on for this number. Withered Blank is the most withered out of any of the animatronics. All of his suit parts seem to be damaged in one way or another. A large part of the left side of his head is gone, exposing his endoskeleton. His left forearm and upper right arm are missing its exoskeletons, while his right forearm is completely gone. All suit parts below his knees are gone, and there are 2 holes in his torso. One of the holes exposes the endoskeleton. His texture isn't white anymore, rather more of a gray color, like the shirt you forgot to wash that isn't the same anymore. Unless you use today's sponsor, I'm kidding. He appears to be the same as he was in the first game's minigame, but in Night 6's second minigame, the player can see Blank's original appearance, which is really unsettling. I don't know why, it's just like, there's just the pure white, hardly any features. It's creepy. It's really creepy, like Slender Man. And in 2, Havoc Chica. Do I even need to explain this? Havoc Chica, aka Maria, is a Havoc animatronic that hails from the Dormitivus universe. She is the Havoc version of Chica, obviously, and is a failed attempt by the Havoc puppet to give her spirit a physical form. While having the same color scheme as Chica, however, the two look nothing alike. The mask Havoc Chica wears has a good amount of damage done to it. Her right eye socket has grown in size, arching upwards towards her feathers. The rest of her mask has small withering in a few places, mainly near her right eye socket and her forehead. She has no eyes at all, resulting in her being blind. Her jaw isn't directly connected to her head either, like the Chica from FNAF 1. Instead, her jaw looks more like her withered counterpart, where her jaw has withering on the sides of it and has some towards the front. Her entire head is attached to a suitless limb segment, making her head stick out of her way and like it sticks out from her body like this. It's grotesque and nauseating to look at. Finally, in at number 1, Garvey. Garvey is the Dormitivus version of Springtrap. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitivus. As a human, he was the man who murdered the missing children. He later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and was then burned to a permanent death in the Fazbear Frights fire. He looks absolutely horrific. The suit on his limbs and body are heavily tattered and shredded, and his organic remains are far more visible than they were with Springtrap, which just makes it all the more pleasant to look at. His lower jaw is deformed and broken, which disappears on at least one occasion, showing Garvey's corpse, mouth, and jaw. Garvey now has an unnatural animalistic stance as well, walking on all four limbs. His limbs appear to be snapped in multiple places as well, alluding to the limbs being bent in unnatural ways, and the fact that his left hand serves as a foot and his left foot serves as a hand. He is also much bigger than Springtrap or any other threat in the game. He's absolutely terrifying and scarier than any other animatronic in this game, hands down, and he constantly gives me nightmares. That's why I use him in thumbnails so much. Anything that mentions Springtrap, Garvey. And at 10 mini candies. The mini candies will be antagonists in the upcoming Fazbear Fanverse Initiative game Five Nights at Candy's 4. They appear to be miniature versions of Candy the Cat, similar to the mini Renas from Sister Location. The mini candies are small, kitten-like animatronics with a blue-colored exterior. They have triangular ears with triangular teeth on their upper jaw. Each one has blackish eyes with large glowing white pupils, and their appearance heavily resembles Candy the Cat from the first game. Obviously. They wear a pair of red overalls with yellow buttons, but given the earlier comparison to the mini Renas, I have a feeling these guys would also crawl into my body while I'm sleeping and then blow me up from the inside, or use my body as an escape route or other classic FNAF tropes. So, yeah, that sounds horrific. And at 9, Monster Vinny. Monster Vinny, also known as the Monster Reverse Puppet, is the final antagonist of Five Nights at Candy's 3. He is the monstrous manifestation of Vinny, this game's version of the puppet. Instead of sharing the same eyes as Nightmare Yana and New Vinny, the eyes appear to be held up by a metal frame inside the mask. The jaw also appears to move like a dummy. The mouth contains many sharp teeth stained red at the tips, and Monster Vinny's mask appears to be dirty or aged, like in a bad way, not like a good whiskey. He sports a blue bow tie and 3 white buttons. He has a purple and blue coloring on his lips and the outside of his eyes. A purple and blue line comes down the sides of his face, you know, the classic FNAF fashion. His hands also seem to come to points with blood at the end. Monster Vinny is also very skinny. Skinnier than me, if you can believe it. While not the scariest animatronic, the jump scare for Monster Vinny is actually pretty scary. And at 8, Chester the Chimpanzee. Look, I love monkeys, but Chester Chimpanzee is one of the antagonists of Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered. Chester shows up again in Five Nights at Candy's 2, but more broken down like the other animatronics when he becomes active on night 2, and that withered appearance from FNAF 2 is what I'm going to be focusing on for referencing in this list. And it makes me sad that I love monkeys. When Withered Chester becomes active in the second game, he can appear on any camera like the other animatronics. His mechanism is different from most other animatronics though. Instead of trying to get to the player from the central hall, he will try to get to the player through the vents. By clicking on the phone in the room Chester is in, the player can scare him away, and then he runs out of sight of the camera. Chester is never seen in the central hall except during a jump scare. He bangs on the vent cover while trying to get in, so the player can listen for when they need to react to him. If left unattended, however, he will enter the vents and loudly climb towards the player. At this point, a jump scare is unavoidable unless the night ends first.
And at 7, Reaper Balloon Boy. Reaper Balloon Boy was introduced in Final Nights 3, Nightmares Awoken, before being brought back in Final Nights 4, Fates Entwined. However, his Final Nights 4 appearance is much worse, so I'll be focusing on that one for this number. Reaper Balloon Boy's body appears to be immense for a small animatronic. He has long, extending arms with blue and red striped sleeves, and has protruding fingers at the end of his hands. But obviously they're protruding because they're coming out of his hand, but they're more stumpy, it's weird. He also has many red scratches all over his body, possibly resembling human cuts. In Final Nights 4, however, his appearance becomes much more disfigured and rough, with his face and fingers being stretched out even more, and sporting multiple sharp-looking blades on his propeller cap. Reaper Balloon Boy appears in Investigation 4 in Final Nights 4, and he, along with the other Reaper animatronics, try to attack Max Donovan in the hospital bedroom. If the player hears him laugh, they must go up to him and shine him with the flashlight to repel him. The scariest thing about this animatronic, though, is his museum description that reads, quote, "Not related to Danny DeVito."
And at 6, Withered Cat. Withered Cat is almost similar to the Withered Rat. They both have the same dominant color and have fallen into disrepair. However, I talk about other versions of the rat enough on this list, so I went with the cat for this number. The cat also has hollowed eyes, with the right eye having stitches. Like the rat, he has a stitch running across his head and some joints, yet he doesn't have a metallic skin or layer showing. Unlike his successors, Old Candy, Candy, and Cindy, the cat himself doesn't have many whiskers. He has a large hole torn in in his chest, similar to the withered rat, and he has 2 to 3 metallic cubes on his arms. However, unlike his monster counterpart, he has no fanged teeth. He does, however, have exposed endoskeleton fingers along with his left hand and lower left leg, with parts of his upper left leg exposed as well. His body is damaged, as is his head. He also seems to be less damaged than the rat, and only appears on nights 6 and 8 of FNAF 2. Even though he's less damaged than the rat, still creepy. Halfway through to number 5, Havoc Freddy. Havoc Freddy is a distorted manifestation accident born from Havoc Puppet, who attempted to make a physical body for the spirits in purgatory from plasma. When alive, the spirit's name was Ted. Get it? Ted became Fred? Never mind. Havoc Freddy bears a slight resemblance to his real counterpart, but for the most part they look very different. He mainly consists of a slightly dark brown color scheme. He has a giant hole in the right side of his mask, revealing a large portion of his endoskeleton. His right eye hangs out of a hole by just a few wires, consisting mainly of a black color with a red pupil. His left eye has a blue color to it, like his real counterpart. His eyebrows look rather large, with the right one missing a small amount of itself. His top hat appears to be fine though, and it may have some slight damage done to its base, however. A 2-segment long arm is connected to the left side of his head, with it wearing no suit to it. The hand for the arm appears to be missing a finger segment as well, and is holding a microphone. Havoc Freddy doesn't seem to have a suit for his lower jaw, and his entire jaw is just hanging by a few wires. The rest of his body is absolutely destroyed, and it looks extremely unsettling. I don't like it. No. Please stop. And at 4, Old Candy. Old Candy acts as the replacement for the cat and is one of the antagonists in Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered. He, along with the rat, have been scrapped and stored in the parts and service room. Old Candy looks much larger and bulkier than Candy, as well as having dark blue fur. Like Cat, it lacks a tie and more of its endoskeleton is exposed. He's lacking eyes altogether, his shoulders are barely covered, and his endoskeleton is showing. Your endoskeleton's showing? What? Where? Along with some wires traveling down his arms. This makes him harder to see when he's standing in the doorway, since he doesn't have glowing eyes like the original Candy. Or I guess the newer Candy, since this is the old version. I don't know, man, this stuff, it gets confusing.
And at 3, Glitch Balloon Boy. Glitch Balloon Boy, also known as GBB, is the secondary antagonist in Final Nights 2, and also appears on Night 5, alongside Shadow Spring Bonnie and Shadow Fredbear. GBB is the only glitched animatronic in the game. He has the shape of Balloon Boy, but he's kind of glowing and flashes 3 colors very quickly. He also seems to glitch out easily, hence its style and name. He is also the least withered animatronic in the game. The character also seems to nearly have a TV grain aesthetic to him, with certain screenshots showing horizontal lines that you'd get like if a TV didn't have service, you know, instead of like the static, it's like the staticky black and white lines. GBB also emits a distorted version of Balloon Boy's laugh, and he will go through the left vent. Seal it instantly if he appears in that vent, because if you do end up failing to seal it, he will not jump scare you like other animatronics, but rather he will appear in your office and laugh, slowly breaking all of your cameras one by one, including the vent cameras, which allows Shadow Fredbear and Shadow Spring Bonnie to basically kill you instantly. While not jump scaring the player, he is certainly a mischievous scamp, making him scarier than the other two, at least in my opinion.
And ultimately, in at number 2, Monster Rat. Monster Rat, previously known as Nightmare Rat, is a monstrous manifestation of the original rat that appeared in Five Nights at Candy's 3 as one of the 2 main antagonists. Monster Rat's appearance closely resembles that of a human, with both fixed ears, pointy fingernails, stitched parts, and surprisingly sporting a long rat tail filled with metal pieces. His face seems to sport fangs, glowing red eyes, and a big nightmarish smile. Oh, the whole package. Unlike his other counterparts, Monster Rat is a living creature. Monster Rat is the animatronic I think of when I think of Five Nights at Candy's. I don't know what it is about this guy, but he just makes me uncomfortable. Maybe it's the fact that he appears around the bed that makes me uncomfortable, considering how there is already way too much fan art about that kind of thing in the community, so we don't need any reasons for more of it. But I mean, it's been years since this game was released, so I'm probably a little late on that. Finally, in at number 1, Shadow Rat. Shadow Rat is the final antagonist of Five Nights at Candy's 3. He is a purple version of the Monster Rat, and he appears in the Dreamscape and in the Shadow Challenge. His appearance is just a dark purple version of the monster rat, but the true horror of this character comes from the gameplay as well as his appearance. Shadow Rat's Shadow Challenge is by far the hardest knight to beat in the entire game, and rightfully so. However, it isn't that combat against him is difficult, the difficulty comes with the Shadow Rat's speed. Shadow Rat is the fastest enemy in the game by far, going from door to door to moving his head in combat to going under the bed and then popping back up, and even returning after combat is over. Don't expect to have a second without combat in this challenge. You'll be fighting more than you'll be resting, and that's what makes this scarier than the original monster rat. While yes, for some reason the dark purple makes things seem more sinister, the sheer difficulty of the Shadow Challenge will result in you being scared about the night before even making it there. You'll load up the game and be thinking, oh crap, how am I gonna deal with the Shadow Rat?
And at 10, Withered Fredbear. Withered Fredbear from Final Nights 1, as you'd expect, is a withered version of Fredbear. However, there is only a head seen during this character's night appearance, as it will poke its head through the holes in the ceiling in the attic. You just need to shine your light at him to prevent him from jump scaring you. Other than that, he is more or less a toned down version of Nightmare Fredbear, but with less bulk as we can see in the extras for the first Final Nights game. His jump scare is also frightening, coming out of seemingly nowhere like most jump scares, but with it being only its head, it gives the illusion of some odd movement that sets me on edge. Like it's his head just coming straight at you or like at an angle, so like he's kind of like doing this or something. It's weird. And at 9, Burnt Chica. Burnt Chica appears in the second Final Nights game, Final Nights 2 Sins of the Father, and Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined. The two versions are definitely different design-wise, but I'll be focusing on the model from Final Nights 2 for this number. Every time it says Final Nights, my body tries to say FNAF. Burnt Chica looks like Withered Chica, only that she is burnt completely this time. Her left leg below the knee is missing and forces her to hop around, kinda like a chicken. A majority of her right arm is missing, with only part of her upper arm remaining, and she still suffers from a missing left hand and a broken jaw, with the suit like having like her jaw kind of hanging, but most of it's also kind of missing. It's weird. Strangely, she also appears to be the only burnt animatronic who still has eyeballs, which are gray and featureless. The entire front of her torso appears to also be torn open, revealing a strange lack of an endoskeleton torso, which is odd to say the least. She seems to have endoskeleton at the joints, but that doesn't make sense because if the fire was hot enough to melt the endoskeleton, why did it only burn the casing? Why didn't it melt the endoskeleton at the joints? And at 8, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the two primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is also one of the final animatronics of the game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap, as is to be expected when mentioning Springlock suits. Similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has a majority of his right ear missing. Overall, he has rips, but is not missing any limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics in the first 4 nights of this game. His face glows white, which is notable when he's in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance that pushes the something supernatural idea that most of the Shadow animatronics have, like Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes the roles of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on Night 5. He is very fast, so the player must seal the vent quickly or else they'll get jump scared, and he also may appear in the hallway. However, you should never use your flashlight, otherwise you'll get insta-killed. Also, inspect his face when he appears there, because if he's twitching, you need to close the door, and then a rattling sound will let you know when he's left. The fact that you need to look at his face closely to see if you're in danger is kinda terrifying, especially when most of what you need to do is based on fast reflexes, and if you're stuck staring at someone to see if they're twitching, you can't pay attention to what else is going on.
And at 7, the Havoc Puppet. The Havoc Puppet is responsible for the creation of every animatronic in the game, aside from one. Havoc Puppet is formed by a cracked and distorted version of the puppet's original mask, which is missing its lower half. The head has a small hole above the place the mouth would be, and 2 pinpoint pupils inside of the eye sockets. The lower half of the main mask features 7 black tentacle-like extensions, 3 at the back and 4 at the front. The side 2 and the front are used as legs, while the other 2 seem to be used like arm-like appendages. The back 3 tentacles seem to be tail-like extensions as well. She also has a crack on the top of her head, and it's wrong. It looks like a giant spider, and we all know how I feel about spiders. I fucking hate them.
And at 6, Burnt Freddy. Burnt Freddy, like Burnt Chica, appears in Final Nights 2 and 4, and is a burnt version of Withered Freddy. He's a rusty and badly burned bear with a top hat and bow tie with 2 buttons on his chest, because, you know, counting buttons is important for some reason. He has a large hole in the left side of his head, revealing parts of his endoskeleton head, and I mean at least he has one, which in Family Guy would also mean something completely different. He also lacks eyes, a left arm, a right hand, and both feet, which makes him resort to crawling, which I have to be honest isn't the most efficient method of movement. Unless I'm drunk, in which case it becomes the only way that I can get around. In Final Nights 4, Burnt Freddy's texture looks more plastic though. His chin is fixed and he's able to walk around, and he can kinda limp. Like me when I'm slightly less drunk. Actually, I can kick ass when I'm drunk. At least if I'm playing Blade and Sorcery and pretending to be Captain America. Did that on my personal channel. It was a fun video. Gave me an excuse to drink online.
Halfway through, and in number 5, Shadow Cat. Shadow Cat is the shadowy form of the monster cat from Five Nights at Candy's 3. It first appears on the pre-night cutscene of Night 3 and is only seen through its jump scare when the player stands in the darkness for too long. This is the pre-9000 power level Shadow Candy form I was talking about earlier. Shadow Cat, much like the Shadow Rat, shares most of its features from the cat from FNAF 2, with a stitched forehead and hollow eye sockets. The Shadow Cat also shares his appearance with the Monster Cat from FNAF 3, mainly with his sharp teeth and fangs. It's unclear whether this was done for lore, or if it's just the models that were being reused for time constraints or ease of use, since they were retextured, and time constraints would usually just result in the character reappearing, at least from what I've seen. But again, I don't know, I'm not a game designer, I didn't make these games. I don't know. It's probably for lore.
And at 4, Shadow Fredbear. Shadow Fredbear is the other primary antagonist from Final Nights 2 along with Shadow Spring Bonnie. An odd thing to note about this animatronic is that Shadow Fredbear is almost perfectly intact, only burnt black in color, which is a hard contrast to the burnt animatronics, who are absolutely destroyed. He has a few rips in his body and is missing a left hand. The area around his mouth also appears to be slightly torn, revealing a majority of his endoskeleton teeth, but everywhere else remains mostly intact. His teeth and eyes glow, which make him easier to see in the hallway, and also, for some reason, the right eye seems to float in its socket, which again only adds to the supernatural feel. But no other animatronic seems to share this design feature, so I don't know why they included it. He replaces Burnt Bonnie, the brother, and Burnt Chica on Night 5, and may hide in the right vent, which results in it needing to be closed. Obviously. He may also appear in the hallway, making you have to use your flashlight when he's close, since closing your doors may actually get you killed, as well as shining your flashlight too early. His head may also appear in the brother's shack, which will be signified by a breathing noise, so if you hear that, you'll need to hit him with your flashlight in order to survive. That kind of sounds like a prophecy. I don't know why, I just kind of get the vibe of a prophecy, you know, a prophecy of death.
And at 3, Soul Cage. The Soul Cage resembles a lamp that has 4 heads of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. Basically, it's an animatronic based on the bad ending from FNAF 3. The Soul Cage is made up of some props from Fazbear Fright. The base of the Soul Cage is Bonnie's torso, with Bonnie's head being connected to it. Chica's head is connected to the left side of its main torso by a metal rod. On the right side of the main torso is Freddy's torso, which is also being connected to the main torso by 2 metal rods. Freddy's torso is tilted to the side, making him stick out. Freddy's head is also connected to his torso, at least. Foxy's head is connected to the main torso by a rather long metal rod in the back of the torso, which is weird. Foxy's head is positioned right above Bonnie's head. Each head that the Soul Cage has contains a single light source in their left eye socket. Each head also has large sharp teeth in their jaws. They have a grimy looking texture to them as well, which may be a reference to the Fazbear Fright's fire. And Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy also don't have their ears anymore. And there's 4 robotic legs, because why the hell not?
And ultimately in at number 2, Stage Bonnie. Stage Bonnie is an antagonist in Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined. He is the original Spring Bonnie from Fredbear's Family Diner, as well as the very first model of Bonnie. The name of Stage Bonnie comes from the museum level, which unlocks after beating Night 5, however it's just the Spring Bonnie from 1973. Stage Bonnie is a golden yellow animatronic rabbit that doubles as both animatronic and suit. He sports articulated ears that are able to bend, he also wears a purple bow tie like Fredbear, and also like Fredbear, Stage Bonnie wears white gloves and has green eyes. While not run down like the other animatronics, there's just something about this guy that makes him creepier than most of his other counterparts. I don't know if it's because seeing a yellow Bonnie repaired is weird since all the other versions have been run down, or if it's the pose or the posture or the fact that William used it to murder like 17 kids, but Stage Bonnie is still pretty damn creepy despite being the cleanest animatronic on this list. Finally, in at number 1, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Stage Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity, but he is definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4. He is 100% the scariest animatronic in the games. In essence, Reaper Spring Bonnie is a nightmare spring trap. He has sharp teeth and a very damaged and withered body. His suit is dark yellow in color, and he sports a big purple bow tie on his upper chest, and like the other Reapers,